Yes.
Yeah.
No, it seems to be going. Okay. There we go. Welcome to Online Presenters. This is a club that meets online and focuses on learning skills for better webinars and online events. We want to thank RingCentral Meetings for allowing us to use, excuse me, we want to thank RingCentral for allowing us to use the RingCentral Meetings platform at no cost. They do want me to mention that the cloud is winning in business communications and RingCentral is winning in the cloud. Oh, that's not tonight. We do recommend that if you're new to online meetings, get to know the audio controls. So mute yourself when it's not your turn to speak, use a headset, use some earbuds, somehow try and prevent audio feedback and audio problems on the line. Also, typing is tremendously noisy if you're using a laptop with the built-in microphone and you start clattering away. That is enormously noisy. You can also toggle your video on and off. So those controls are in the lower left-hand corner for audio and video. Also, this video environment allows you to switch between a gallery view where you see everyone and an active speaker view where you see the person who's presenting. Usually when somebody is speaking, you'll want to be focused on them. And speakers, table topic speakers, all speakers, try and watch the time. So that means keeping track of the video feed from the speaker, which will be me tonight. And if you need to tell the Toastmaster of the day to give you a moment so that you can get that that timer's feed in view, take the time so that we don't have you running over time. If you're visiting with us as a guest, we ask you to attend at least 2 meetings as a guest, and also to understand that this is an advanced club. It's not for absolute beginners, although we do have a way, if you don't meet our default membership requirement, we can vote you in anyway if you have other things that you can bring to the club, such as professional experience. With that, it is showtime. So I'll stop the screen sharing. And Jimmy, you now want to make Michael the meeting host so that he can carry on with the meeting.
Yes, let's see.
I think I have the microphone here. Do I need to be the host?
Being the host allows you to mute everybody if there's problems with the audio. Right. So it's an important superpower to have when you're running the meeting. You can shut people up, and I'll shut up now.
Okay.
Michael, well, you should be the host now. You're in control.
All right, thank you. That means I have to go look for all those controls, but we'll see how we go here. All right.
This is my first time looking for all them too. So
I saw you searching around there, Jimmy. Great shirt tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here in the United States. It's still July 2nd, 2 days away from the 4th of July, our independence from those terrible Brits who kept us under their thumb for so long. Welcome, everyone. And as Toastmaster this evening, I would like to get started with announcing all of the roles. And I'll start with Elaine, who is this evening's counter. Elaine, would you please tell us all what you're going to be doing tonight?
Well, I will be fine-tuning my hearing, so I'm catching all those ahs, ums, so's, buts, you knows, ers, clutch words, those other fun things that slip out from time to time. And I'll be reporting later on just how folks have done.
Thank you very much.
Toastmaster.
Thanks, Elaine. And our timer this evening is David. David, did you want to take another turn?
Yeah, well, just quickly, I've gimmicked my video feed so that you should see green, yellow, and red at the appropriate points in your speech so you know when it's time to put on the brakes. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This evening, our grammarian is Jim Dent. And Jimmy, would you like to introduce your role, please?
Sure. I'll be listening for good uses of grammar, picturesque grammar, descriptive grammar, and any grossly inappropriate grammar.
Oh, all sorts of grammar. Thank you very much, Jimmy, and you'll be reporting at the end of the evening. And Mr. Jim Barber is our watcher who's going to be keeping a close eye. Jim, would you describe your role?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster. As the watcher this evening, I am in essence a sanctioned stalker. I will be watching everybody intently and making notes, and this is not illegal. This is, as I say, this is a sanctioned thing, and I will be reporting at the end of the meeting on who has had proper lighting, backgrounds, and that sort of thing. Basically, who has a good, or I hope there won't be any cases of bad video presence. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Jim. Let's see. Our vote counter this evening is supposed to be Krishnan, and I don't see. So, Carol, would you mind taking that role? Thank you very much. And did you want to introduce what you're going to be doing other than counting votes?
The vote counter will receive your vote. So for the best speaker, best evaluator, best table topics, and then at the end of the meeting, I will announce the winners of those evaluations. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And our chat monitor this evening is Deborah Carr. Deborah?
I will be paying attention to the chat, what goes on, and if we have links, I will make sure that everyone's reminded at the end that's in there, and helping out Michael with what's going on behind the scenes. I'll report later.
Thank you so much. All right. Applause to everyone who introduced themselves, and we'll move right along to our speakers. Rod Moore is going to be our first speaker, and he's delivering speech number 3 from Presentation Mastery Level 1. And his evaluator this evening is Ben. Ben, do you have at your fingertips the project, and could you read the purpose of the project for us?
Sure. Just one quick second. So the purpose of this speech is for the member to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback to a second speech. And the purpose of this speech is for the member to demonstrate that he or she has applied the feedback received from his or her first speech.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, Rod Moore is working on his second path, which is presentation mastery, and his speech is based on his real-life experience in trying to unlock the keys to what makes a great speaker. The speech title is Bringing Your Speech to Life. Please welcome Rod Moore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters and guests. Have you ever wondered what makes a great speaker? I don't know about you, but I've sat in rooms with speakers that have thoroughly captivated and engaged the entire audience. And I sat there wondering, what is it about them that makes them such a compelling and great speaker? Have you ever had that experience? I'm sure you all have. That's what brings us Toastmasters often. I've spent my whole life, well, my whole adult life, searching for the answers to that. Now, my interest in public speaking started when I was in my early 20s. I was somehow invited along to an Amway rally. I had no idea what it was, and don't worry, I'm not here to sell you Amway. But the keynote speaker was a man who I'd never heard of. And when they introduced him, the entire auditorium of 2,000 people just went completely silent. He walked across the stage with purpose, and his leather shoes clacked on the wooden stage, and it ricocheted around the auditorium. And for the next hour, I sat there just absolutely mesmerized by this speaker. He shared a personal story with us about how his life was changed through the power of his teacher. And I could relate to that story from my own personal experience. And that led me on a quest to find out, how do you become a really great speaker that captures and engages people? I mean, we're all Toastmasters. Wouldn't you want to know how to do that? Yeah? Or is it just me? I'm sure we'd all like to know. So over the last 20 or 30 years, I've been studying great speakers. What makes somebody a really, truly compelling and great speaker? And I've done different speech courses and studied different speaking styles. And I've never really felt like I put my finger on that one thing that makes the difference between an average speaker and somebody who's really engaging and compelling and connects with their audience. Then a couple of years ago, I became interested in writing novels. I needed a new hobby. My life wasn't busy enough already. So I thought I might write myself a murder mystery. And as I usually do, when I decide to do something, I like to learn and study and find out everything I possibly can about that thing that I'm now interested in. So I studied everything I could about how do you write a novel, a fiction. And after a couple of months of doing different courses and research and study, I came across a saying that authors have, and that is show, don't tell. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, what an interesting concept. I had to learn more about it. Show, don't tell. And when I studied that idea, which is obviously designed to help you become a better author, it clicked. That's what great speakers do. They show, they don't tell. So let me give you an example. I'm going to share with you two stories. Well, actually, they're the same story, but I'll share it with you in two different ways. So here's story number one. When I was 6 years of age, I was a little bit nervous and shy, and I was terrified of having to speak in front of my class. And I remember one day that my teacher had all the kids in the class stand up and read a passage from a book. And I became really nervous about that and embarrassed by doing that. So that was the first story. So now let me share the same story with you using this idea of show, don't tell. So story number two. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the tension building as one after the other of the children in the classroom stood up to read the passage, because I knew that my turn was coming up next. And as I stood up to speak, my legs were shaking. I could barely hold the book from my hands shaking. I felt my whole face flush red, and I could feel a sweat starting to build on my forehead and drip down the side of my face. And nervously, I started to read the passage from the book, and my voice was shaking and breaking up. And then all of a sudden, my teacher said, "Stop! There's no point you reading any further. You can't even speak properly." Now, all the kids in the classroom burst out laughing, but inside, I felt humiliated, and I just wanted to shrink back into a corner of the room. I was devastated by that comment, and it totally changed my life. Can you see the difference between those two stories? Same story, but the first one, I was just telling you facts. The second one had what I think is the difference between a good speaker and a great speaker. And what is that difference? It's showing, not telling. It's using sensory-rich descriptions to bring our stories and our message to life. When we share a message, we don't want to just have our words heard. We want to create within the minds of our audience an experience. And that experience is visual, it's auditory, it's kinesthetic, how they feel. We want to paint it in a three-dimensional way that they get to experience what we're experienced. That they get to fully comprehend the story and the message we're trying to deliver. So I share this with you because I want you to take on board this idea of showing, not telling. Let's, as Toastmasters, especially in an advanced club, let's step up to a higher level where we start to bring our stories, our speeches, our messages to life by creating sensory-rich experiences for our audience. Fellow Toastmasters, let's show, don't tell. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rod. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much. Great job. Right, our second speaker this evening is Graham Cairns. And Graham is going to be presenting a level 1 project from researching and presenting from coaching fundamentals, effective coaching. There we go. All right, got that. And Dagmara is going to be his evaluator. Dagmara, do you have the project? Could you read the purpose statement for us?
Yes, Michael. So the purpose of Graham's is to learn or review basic research methods and present a well-organized, well-researched speech on this topic. Back to you.
Thank you very much. The title of Graham's speech is How America Got in the Way of the Second Coming. And it was 526 years ago next month that Columbus set out on a journey that he thought would bring about the end of the world. What? That's not the story we learned in school, you might say. But today, Graham is going to bring you a different version of the Columbus story and how America got in the way of the Second Coming. How America got in the way of the Second Coming. Please welcome Graham Cairns.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Before I begin, can I just check? I need to, I'm trying to bring up a shared screen. Can you see Columbus? You can, good, all right. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, you know how Christopher Columbus stood up against the reactionary Catholic Church, which kept saying that the world was flat. How he was a Renaissance man, a great leader, a figure who broke the shackles of conformity, how he was a rugged individualist. Well, I'm sorry, but nope, 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 and nope. In fact, that view of Columbus comes from the biography by Washington Irving. It casts Columbus as a prototype of American exceptionalism. It represents everything that Americans would like to think of themselves. Instead, it could be argued that Columbus was in fact a religious nutter, a deluded fool, an appalling administrator, and, well, quite frankly, a stuffed shirt. By a series of wild, irresponsible, and quite frankly, willfully wrong assumptions, Columbus launched what he called the enterprise of the Indies, to reach Asia by heading west. And in doing so, he stumbled across the Americas in an act that has been called one of the most important accidents in world history. And yet, until the end of his life, Columbus genuinely believed that he had not discovered new continents, but had reached the old and rich lands of Asia. Born as Cristoforo Colombo in 1451 in Genoa, the son of a weaver, he was largely self-educated and shipped out on Genoese trade expeditions throughout the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. By the 1480s, Columbus had conceived a plan which he called the Enterprise of the Indies, where he could reach the East Indies by sailing west. Now, the East Indies in this context doesn't mean India, but Asia in the broader sense, Japan and China included. Of course, Columbus wasn't the first to dream this. But what made Columbus different was the faith in his own plan and his relentless effort to marshal all available evidence of whatever reliability to support his cause, even when it was demonstrably false. You see, there's a widely believed but incorrect assumption, a myth, that Columbus believed the world was round while the rest of the world thought it was flat. No, in fact, every educated person knew that the world was round. They'd known that for 1,000 years. But what made Columbus different and spectacularly wrong compared to his contemporaries was his conclusion that the world was in fact much smaller than others thought. For his enterprise to be practical, the world had to be smaller. And so he relentlessly cherry-picked every authority that he could find in support of his case. He overestimated radically the size of Asia and he underestimated the globe's extent by about 20%. Columbus believed that Asia was about 3,800 kilometres by sailing to the west. The real distance was 17,000 kilometres. Added to these miscalculations, his religious motives. Columbus, to paraphrase the Blues Brothers, thought he was a man on a mission from God because the world, he thought, was ending soon. The enterprise of the Indies, Columbus believed, was part of a larger drama to carry Christianity to others and then get them to help in the fight against what he saw as the Antichrist, the Muslims against whom the Crusades had been waged to regain Jerusalem. For Columbus, it all fit together perfectly in his head. An example of this is the story of Marco Polo. Now, Polo had earlier said that the Khan of China, and that's who this is supposed to represent, believe it or not, that the Khan of China had a good view of Christianity. And Columbus believed that if the East could be reached, then China could become a significant ally against the Muslim Antichrist, hastening the end times. Once that happened, Columbus believed, we would see the second coming of Christ and the final advent of the kingdom of God, all around sometime in the mid-1700s. Well, that didn't quite happen, did it? Still, it took him 8 years, but he finally got the funding. In August 1492, he set sail with 3 ships, all of them tiny. How small? About 17 metres. And how big is 17 metres? If you were to get 3 minivans and park them end to end, that's the same size as these ships. And yet they sailed across the Atlantic in that. On board these tiny ships, the crew were unhappy. But despite the rumours, it wasn't that they were afraid they were going to sail over the edge of the world. No, what they were actually afraid of was that Columbus' short journey wouldn't be anywhere near as short as he thought it would be, and that they would run out of food, which they very nearly did. But in October 1492, the expedition spotted land, and they went ashore on a Caribbean island. They'd arrived in the West Indies, even if Columbus believed it was the East Indies. In fact, there were 2 whopping great continents in the way, but Columbus didn't believe that to his dying day. Of the people that Columbus first encountered, the Taino people and the Caribs were soon extinct. But oddly enough, many of their words still survive. Caribbean, canoe, hurricane, tobacco, barbecue. These people slept, by the way, in hanging hammocks, which soon became the standard of European ships, and indeed the word cannibal itself comes from the word for Caribs. But very little other than the word survives, and a bit of artwork, Taino art like this, which is still created by artisans in the Dominican Republic and Hispaniola for tourists like me. Well, Columbus was in 7th heaven. He was exultant in his conclusion that he had found Asia, so he left the colony behind and set off home to share the good news before he got sent back on a second voyage in 1493. I have to tell you, though, that Columbus was actually a fairly lousy administrator. By 1496, he was ordered home once again to explain himself and his colonies. He was allowed to return on a 3rd voyage, this time landing on the mainland of South America in what is now Venezuela. He was convinced that he had in fact reached the edge of paradise and believed that the rivers flowing from the inland were the 4 rivers mentioned in the Bible. Well, not quite. He began writing, but then didn't finish, a strange tome called the Book of Prophecies, an apocalyptic vision of the end times which he claimed had been hastened by his voyages which he still maintained had reached Asia, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. He died at the age of 55, a deeply bitter and resentful man who claimed to the last that he had reached Asia, but that no one would believe him. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how America actually got in the way of the second coming. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but what he found didn't hasten the end because he was, quite literally, round the bend. Mr. Toastmaster.
Well, I have to say that all of our senses have been tickled pink this evening. First, Rod touched us in many, many ways, our emotions and auditory, and I felt wonderfully connected to him. And Graham, I have to say, those were some of the best visuals I've ever seen at a Toastmasters meeting. Great slides. Fabulous job. So we've been regaled through all of our senses this evening. Thank you very much. Mr. Timer, may we have a report, please?
Yes, the timer must report the timer forgot to time during Rod's speech because I was busy explaining the fancy special effects I was using to project the timing device. I forgot to actually turn it on. However, so Rod wins, or not wins, but he qualifies by virtue of the timer being disqualified. Graham spoke for 7 minutes and 1 second.
Right, thank you so much. So then both speakers qualify for voting. Please send your votes for best speaker to Carol. And you can private chat to Carol for your votes. And I believe at this time, I'm going to be turning the stage over to John Quick, who is our topics master.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Table Topics is the time when we get to practice impromptu speaking on fanciful topics selected by myself. Today, we're going to continue with that spirit of showing instead of telling. What I'm going to do is display an image on my screen, and your challenge today is to describe it, tell a story about it, get creative about it, use the image that you see as an inspiration for your table topics. That'll be a 1 to 2 minute speech that you can take in any direction you feel necessary. If you end up getting called on, you may want to right-click on my screen and pin it so you can stare at that photo for inspiration while you're thinking of what to say. Right now, I'll switch over and take myself off. It's our first image for today, and this one goes to Andy.
What I'm seeing here looks like a road in the middle part of the country. Dirt road along farms. A cat that is superimposed on the picture, and a farmhouse in the far distance. In fact, this looks like the road that they used in the movie Twister, just before the sky turned black and the winds picked up, and you worried that the tornado would form right in front of you and lift you up in the air, just like in The Wizard of Oz, and you would not know where you're going to land if indeed you weren't going to be killed. This is a typical picture that you would see in the Midwest, where you have lots of farms growing soy and corn and hay. And the road is a dirt road, not paved, and it represents iconic Middle America. Not very overdeveloped like it is in Florida, and a place where you can really stretch out and appreciate the outdoors. Mr. Table Topic Speaker, Master.
Thank you, Andy. Indeed, this was a dirt road out in Twisterland. In fact, it was Texas on a farm. And that may be Columbus's cat of the apocalypse. Another fate avoided. Okay, let's go to image number 2. Get rid of the cat. Here it is, a frigid landscape. This one goes to Rolando.
So, Table Topic Masters, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. I'm seeing like the sea or something with like a submarine. Somebody like submarine, like maybe from the Russia trying to spy on us or something. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not a submarine from Russia. Maybe it's from another country. Speaking of submarine, I wish I've been on a submarine. I wonder what it feels like to be underwater, deep underwater. And if something happened to you, what are you gonna do? If an accident happened and the boat is sinking, it's leaking, how are we gonna save ourselves? Imagine there's a leak on the submarine. Everybody's screaming and yelling, and nobody is trying to save nobody's trying to help each other because everybody is panicking. They're all trying to save themselves. I hope that never happens. Nowadays, the submarines, I'm sure, are well equipped with technology that will prevent this from happening. Still, I'm still wishing and hoping that I can be in a submarine soon. I can see how this feels like. Back to you, Mr. Master.
Thank you, Rolando. That was a riveting, dramatic story that I want to hear the end of, and it's far better than the real picture. You did an excellent job creating some excitement for us there. Next picture. Let's take it a little bit warmer. This one is for Sunny.
Oh, let's see. Pin video. Ah.
Oh.
Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. This looks like somewhere along possibly a beach. That empty boat means that probably someone has gone ashore. Maybe they're having a picnic. Maybe it's two lovers. Maybe it's a family with young kids just enjoying the day. They're probably remembering that life is short and that it's really great when you can make the best of your day, living your day as if you may die tomorrow, knowing that you can always make more money, but you can't always make more memories. So I imagine that even if that was me, I'd love to take the time to de-stress, to breathe, in and out, in and out, thinking how great it is to be alone, but not by myself, but with myself, talking to God, talking to the universe, and knowing that they've got my back because greater things are on the horizon, even though I'm taking one day at a time. Mr. Table Topics Master.
That was excellent, Sunny. I appreciate the themes of family and love and philosophy that you were able to bring in to what I thought was, it's just a simple photo, but you breathed a lot of life into it, which I can appreciate. I'm sad to take the photo down for another one. Here's a new one for us. This goes to Elaine.
Mr. Table Topics Master, honored guest, and fellow Toastmasters. As I gaze upon this scene, what strikes me are the rays of the sun. And alas, it's not just me that is going to be basked or blessed by these wonderful rays of the sun that will lift my spirit, open my heart. But alas, there's even a cat, which is going to receive the same blessing. How surprising it is that a cat should appear on this scene. but I will drink in those rays. I will drink in the golden light. I'll let that golden light that's before me merge and meld with what I think is the golden light of my own heart that fuels me, that sustains me. And oh, what a wondrous scene this is. What a beautiful, expansive vista. And oh, what fun to have a cat appear in the midst of it. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Elaine. While you're drinking in the rays, one piece of advice is to be careful not to drink in the salt water there. Make sure to keep your neck above water. Hey, we have time for one more, perhaps? Let's do one more. Here it is. Architecture fans, which I hope is Deborah Carr.
Fellow Toastmasters, there is nothing more exciting than exploring. And regardless if it's exploring this floor in the textures and the grout that sometimes pops up in mine on the ceramic floors, but the exploring the types of textures, exploring how it's laid out, the pattern, and the nubbiness and the way you can feel it is so incredible. But more incredible is really just exploring life and what we're taught compared to what we believe, and letting all of that unfold as we move forward and through life. What I really like about exploring is just the allowing more than anything else, and seeing things as if it's for the first time. So when you look at it, it's like, wow, this is much different than what I expected, and you get to just enjoy it so much to almost the point that, like even with this, you can touch it and you can feel it. I don't want to smell that one, but sometimes even a glass of water with a cherry floating in it, or a piece of lemon, even looking at that, just looking at it, you can taste it already. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Deborah. I could almost taste that texture in your speech today. So thank you for sharing with us. And everyone, thank you for participating in a show, Don't Tell, Roundup Table Topics. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quick, our topics master for the evening. Those were great visuals, and you provided an opportunity for all of us to paint and show us with their speaking. And I think Rod started us off on a great theme this evening, because every one of those speeches were very visual and emotion-based as well. Mr. Timer, may we have a report, please?
Yes, I posted the precise times in the chat, but everybody qualified. Everybody's a little bit over a minute, about a minute and a half.
Terrific. So all of our speakers qualified for voting. Please send your vote for best topic speaker to Carol in a private message. And I believe I'm going to call Lou, do you introduce the evaluators, or as general evaluator?
I could if you'd like, Mr. Toastmaster. I think per the agenda, it falls on you, but I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Well, how about you do that? Is that
Very
okay?
well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Wonderful. Okay, we have two excellent speeches for evaluation purposes. The first will be conducted by Ben. Ben, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, everybody, who felt Rod did a great job? Quick show of hands, everybody, one time. Yeah. Let's give him another big hand, everyone. Really great job, Rod. Superb. Superb. So what did I love about Rod's speech? First of all, there were four main things. The first thing, he really started with an opening attention grabber. You know, he asked us, what makes a great speaker? Right? He asked us for a show of hands. So he really involved us from the very start. Very good. Secondly, right, he had a really terrific core message. Right? He shared his opening story and then he got straight into the core message, show, don't just tell. Right? Very superb, and he followed that message through until the very end, and he concluded his entire speech with a message as well. Show, don't tell. Superb. Thirdly, what I loved about his speech was his delivery. He had great vocal variety throughout. He had superb eye contact with everybody. And he was really good using natural gestures, right? I really felt he was good drawing us in, keeping our attention, keeping our interest as well. And the last thing, the fourth thing I really loved were the two examples that he gave. He gave the real example at the end. He, how can I say, he lived by what he said, show, don't tell. He gave the more boring example at the beginning, and then he gave the very animated, you know, very passionate, very exciting stuff where he used his gestures, you know, where he pounded on his chest. But it made us really feel what he felt in that moment. So I truly loved it. Yeah, superb job, Rod. Yeah, could almost not have been better. Really, really great. One thing I would suggest just for improvement, but it would really just be to take your speech to the next level. I felt the one thing he could have incorporated as well with his theme, show, don't tell, because he was talking about the book. So I would have recommended use a prop, you know, use the real thing, right? Show, don't tell, not just with your words, not just with your body language, but also with the physical prop. But besides that, really, Rod, pretty much a perfect speech. I truly enjoyed it. Yeah, let's give him another big hand, everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben. Our second and final evaluator is Doug Murrah. Please evaluate Graham's speech.
So much. So Graham, you chose a great topic. I really love that you spoke on Christopher Columbus, that everyone knows, so we could relate to this story. But the best thing was that you actually went in depth into this topic. So I think that it's really well researched, and you really did a great job. What I love about your speech is that you show plenty of materials, not only maps but also scriptures. You show just a huge variety of materials. You didn't just focus on one specific source of material. So this was very well researched, and I can tell that you put a lot of effort. It was very interesting that you show some relationship that he had with church and his delusional sometimes idea of how wrongly he calculated this distance. And what's great about this, you showed his motivation behind that. You show how he did it. So I think this is something that we really don't go in depth, even at school, when we just focus on this European colonization of the New World. We just state facts, but you really show the color of the story, and you went really in depth. So I really love that part. You also used a very the way you speak was more like a conversation. It was extremely engaging for me. You added, sometimes when you spoke, you just were adding your own funny comments. So I really like that you could take this topic that was a historical topic and just add some your own character and spirit into that. The one thing that I think could be improved is just limiting the content. Maybe focusing on Columbus' relationship with the church, maybe of his miscalculations. Just choose one, because I believe that this topic was so broad and was so well researched that it could be you could speak like 10-15 minutes about this topic easily. So I just had this impression that you tried to speak too fast, a little bit too fast, and very important information that you research and spend so much time on that might be just not very well, heard because you just went too fast with material. I like the form you did it in a small, really small, like webinar style. So it didn't disturb me much, but I think that the density of pictures and facts and the background stories just made it a little bit too dense. But other than that, great topic, great performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dagmara. Wonderful. I have to say, I really enjoy your accent. At one point, though, you said efforts, and I thought I heard F words, and I thought, Graham didn't use the F word, at least not per my notes. Thank goodness. Anyway, Mr. Toastmaster, I'm happy to continue and ask for reports, although I will need help with the folks who actually are the role owner, since I don't have those marked down. So let's start with the grammarian. Whoever the grammarian is, please.
I think we want to. Do we want to vote on?
Oh, very good. Yes.
And get
Sorry,
the timer's
Mr.
report.
Mr. Timer or Dave, please put. Oh, they are in the chat box. Everyone.
Yes, but best evaluators qualified. Bennett 213, Dagmara 309.
Please send your votes to Carol, our vote counter for the evening. Thank you all.
Terrific.
Okay,
so,
oops, sorry.
Sorry, Lou. Did you want me to remind you of who has what role? Or do you have
Actually, you know what? Maybe it might be best if you took it that way. There'll be no delay in the time.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you.
Okay, while you're sending your vote for Best Evaluator to Carol, I'm going to call on our counter, Elaine, this evening. If you could kindly give us your report, please.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. This evening, there were, in the Hunters categories, there were quite a few of repeats. I'm sure, I, by Rod, by Rolando, like, and everybody. In the other categories, with Ben had a couple of you-knows and a couple of ums. Dagmara had about 10 ahs and about 5 ums and a couple of when-we's to fill in. But these come, they go, and everybody, all in all, did a great job tonight. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster Michael.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Great job. And now we'll move over to our grammarian, Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you. Being grammarian tonight was challenging. I did forget to post a word of the day. I apologize for that. I was so engrossed in the speeches and table topics. It was difficult to find something really worthy, outstanding. But I do want to say that everybody used very descriptive language, and that surprised me. Sometimes there's only one or two, but everybody was very descriptive tonight, even with table topics. So I'm gonna pass on that. I didn't hear any grossly bad grammar. I did hear Dagmara's F word, but within the context of the sentence, I understood what she was meaning, is effort. So, if you only heard the word itself, you might think something. So I don't think that was a mistake. That's just part of the accent. And because it fit in with the context of the sentence very well as far as effort. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you so much. It's great to exercise our eyes and our ears in Toastmasters, and we've had an opportunity to do both this evening. Deborah Carr, as our chat monitor.
Well, as always, we always have a great opening with everyone greeting one another and touching base when we first get here, and that's always great. David posted a lot of different links for what was it? The stream. It ties back to the Facebook page for some questions that many of you had. So if you are interested in learning about that, then what you do want to do is save the chat. The other thing too is I like the idea that people are really quiet in the chat box when someone's speaking. It just shows that everyone's truly paying attention rather than typing away and playing both sides. So it's just great. And if you want to have that knowledge of those links, you better save the chat.
Thank you very much, Deborah. And now I'd like to call on Jim Barber as watcher. Let us know, Jim, what we all look like this night.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster. Okay, I'm coming through. Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, kudos to everybody. This is obviously a video-based club, and everybody indicated that they know what they are doing. As far as a clean, nice, pure background, I kudos to Michael, Andy, Elaine, Rod, John, and Carol. All have a nice plain background, but everybody else, you may have other things in your background, but they're not particularly distracting, so good job. In terms of lighting, everybody's well lit. A special kudos to Lou. Lou was commenting that he was using some old equipment. You look great, Lou. Looking great. Also, Michael, Andy, Rod, Deborah, Dagmara, and Elaine. Nikita and John, you're a little bit dark. I understand that logistics are sometimes hard to pull off, but if it is possible to throw a little bit more light on your face, we'd be able to see you a little bit better. And everybody did a great job of getting in close to the camera, looking good. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Jim. Great job. And now I'll call on our general evaluator for his report. Lou, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. First, I'll have a couple of comments on the evaluators. Ben, I really like that you started off your evaluation with asking the audience the question up front about who liked the speech. Great way to get all of our attention. And Dagmar, I like how you really had an in-depth suggestion for improvement in the area that you mentioned. What I would like to see a little differently with both of you, though, is how the particular speeches impacted you personally, because the aspect of evaluations really come from a place of your own personal feelings about the speech, your own opinion. We try to be as objective as possible, but I really enjoy evaluations where the evaluators speak more about how those speeches impact themselves. We did start on time. We did have a couple of glitches, though, in terms of the controls with the handoffs. I think it's a great idea to either have another training segment, perhaps by Dave or somebody, in terms of how to properly use controls with Ring Central, since we do have some new members and all of us could always benefit from a refresher. Also, I noticed that on the agenda we did not have a theme or word of the day, as well as it sounded like at one point everyone did not give information to the various folks, like the objectives and perhaps the evaluation form to the evaluators from the speakers, and also the introductions to the Toastmasters. I think I did hear one, but I'm not sure I heard the other one. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Lou. I believe it's now time to call for the votes. Is that correct?
Sure. Thank you, Michael. The votes were rather exciting, coming in at a fast, rapid pace. It was, of course, a challenge, but thankfully I had it in the chat so I could go back and triple check. First, I'd like to congratulate both speakers for excellent speeches. It was top-notch, and there were distinctions, of course. We liked both, and it came across in the chat. Graham, you are the winner. Thank you. The table topics speaker that won was Sunny. Congratulations, Sunny, new member, and off she goes. Yeah, big applause. Evaluators, Ben, you are off to a brand new start as a brand new evaluator to our club. We loved your evaluation, and you are the winner of that. One suggestion, you vote right after the speaker speaks because the evaluation does influence the votes. I saw, if I did statistics, I saw a statistically significant change in the results based on the evaluator's comments instead of your own evaluation of that speaker. So please, let's vote right after the speaker. Thank you so much, Michael. Back to you.
Thank you, Carol. Great tips and accurate reporting, as always. Thank you very much. I will conclude the meeting by thanking everyone again for your participation. And we heard 2 terrific speeches, 2 great evaluations, a fabulous table topic, visuals, auditory. We're just tingling all over here. I'd like to then turn the meeting over to our presiding officer, who is Jimmy, is that you this evening?
That's right. That's me tonight.
Thank you.
Or from now on. Okay, thank you. One thing I want to do is ask Nikita if she'll tell us what she thought of the meeting tonight.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations to all the speakers. I thought the meeting was amazing. The speakers were great. Table topics was entertaining, and the evaluations too were edifying. Thanks for the warm welcome, and I look forward to the future meetings as well.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any special announcements they would like to make?
Happy 4th of July. Stay safe.
I want to congratulate all the new officers for taking their role and stepping up. I look forward to your leadership. Thank you. Yay, officers.
Congratulations.
Quick question. Did we make presidents distinguish, and does that count?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We did.
Yes,
We made it early. Before June 30th, thank goodness.
Woo. Congratulations.
So I do have an announcement. So for those of you who are holding awards, you can now submit them. It'll give us a jump start on the new year. I'm holding one and I'll be submitting mine soon. Thank you.
Adriana, do you know how we did compared to other online clubs?
I can get you guys a report and send a screenshot out.
Okay.
Hey, Adrian?
Yes.
Those 2 awards I gave you earlier that you said you didn't need for last year, if you still have those, you can submit those for me.
Okay, no problem. I'll get with the new VPE because they may have taken I'll check and see if I still have authorization. They may have switched it over already, but I'll work with that.
That's right.
No
Forgot.
problem.
Yeah, you're the old VP. The previous VP.
Old one.
Yeah, they changed it so fast. I'll get with John and I'll give him a call and I'll walk him through it.
The experienced young VP is what she was, yeah.
Absolutely. I'll be around to help out.
Okay, if there's no other announcements.
We are on time.
Yay!
We'll end the meeting, and thank you everybody for showing up.
Have a great week, everyone.
Until next week.
All right.
What's that, Deborah?
I said save the chat if you want those links.
Yeah, save the chat if you want to save the chat. And David's going to save the video, right?
That is correct.
Is that like save the whales? Save the chat?
Something like that. Yep.
Have a great week, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Night.
Have a happy 4th of July.
Yeah, have a great week.
Bye.